let's look at the practice topics for the reassessment on topic 1, which is the language of geometry. The first one here asks you to name a segment in that diagram. There's a whole lot going on in that diagram, but what you need to know about segments is that they're named by the end points, and we put a segment symbol over them to show the name of the end point. So I will show you a couple of segments in here. If I were to go vertical between these 2 points, this would be the segment PQ. If I were to look at this segment right here, this would be the segment KJ. Many other segments in there too. Okay, congruent angles. Congruent means similar, or the same, or equal to. We use that symbol to show it. And on a diagram, congruent angles will have the same tick marks. So they would either be 2 angles with 1 marking, the ones with 2 markings are similar, the ones with 3 markings are congruent. So we're going to focus on the ones here with 2 markings to start with. We have 2 markings here and 2 markings here. So we need to find the names of those angles. I'm going to highlight the angles for us to see them. Okay? We always name angles with 3 points, and the vertex being in the center. So the first angle that I'm showing here, the vertex M needs to be in the center. And then it could be LMP or PML. It gets an angle symbol in the middle. The congruent angle to it will have to have H in the middle since that is its vertex, and G and Q identify the other sides we're looking at. And G and Q could have been reversed easily. Now if you were wanting to see the names of the angles with the 3 in them, we would have this angle right here. As long as you have I in the middle, you could have GIM, GIP, either of those would name the same angle. And this angle here will again have I in the middle, and we could go from H to I to J, and that would identify it. So you're looking for an angle symbol, 3 letters, and the vertex in the middle. Vertical angles are the ones that are across from each other when lines intersect. They're never next to each other. So here the angles that we are looking for are the ones with the 3 sides on them. We again need to name them. So just like we did in the first place, we have name this angle right here. I'm going to name it differently than we named in the last one. I'm going to start with K. I is the vertex, and it goes down to Q. That would be my first one. The second angle I would be talking about here, again, has I in the vertex. It's going to G, and it's going to start at P. That would be my green angle. There are other vertical angles on here. If these were not the only ones you picked, you could still be correct. You could have labeled these 2 angles as vertical angles. It just, since the markings were on the 3, I'm assuming those are probably the ones you picked. A straight angle, and the next one here, a straight line is again named with 2 points that fall on the line, and we show a line symbol over it. So let's look at a couple of choices here. We have 2 that we could pick. We have this line going along here, and that line would be called FI. It could also be called IF. Doesn't matter which direction it goes in for a line because it's going on in either direction. That's what these arrows at the end mean. If we had picked this line here, we could call it GJ. You could have also called an XG. Just any 2 points on the line. The important thing is the 2 points and to put that arrow symbol, the line symbol with arrows on top of it. What we're looking for in the next one is 3 collinear. Collinear means means together. Linear means on a line. So we want 3 points that are together on a line. If I choose this line right here, I have points G, X, and J. So it would be point G, point X, and point J would all be collinear. The way we name a point is with that capital letter that is attached to it. We're now looking for opposite rays. A couple things to go over here. A ray has an end point and goes in one direction forever. The way we label a ray is starting with the end point. This was A and going through B. We could not switch that around and say BA because A is the end point, has to start with the end point. If they're opposite rays, you actually have 2 rays starting from the same point and going in opposite directions. It'll look like this. I'm going to use X as my starting point. And I'll have a ray going off this way, which is XI, and a ray going off this way, which is XF. So these would be my pair of opposite rays. You would need to list both of them. They would both need to start with the same exact endpoint. We're being asked to draw an angle, a straight angle, called DOG. So an angle is any 2 rays that connect at a vertex. A straight angle is the same thing, it just happens to make a straight line. So we'll have 2 rays that intersect. Looks like the opposite rays that we just talked about. So let's draw one and name it DOG. We know we have a vertex in the middle and 2 rays going off from it. Okay. It's very important that the middle letter is our vertex. So O needs to be in the middle. And then we can label points on either side of it DOG. And if we were to write it out, we'd put an angle symbol, DOG. And we're now going to do an obtuse angle named cat. Obtuse is an example of a measurement of an angle. It's a range of a measurement of an angle. These are those angles that are between 90 degrees and 180. So bigger than a right angle, but smaller than a straight angle. You need to have a vertex, and a ray going off of it, and then we need another ray that's going to be bigger than 90 degrees. So 90 would have been up about here, bigger than 90 but smaller than a straight angle. Our middle letter has to go with the vertex, and then we can put our other ones on there. So that would be angle CAT. Okay. So now we want to look at relationships of angles and identify what type they are. We have complementary, which means they add up to 90 degrees or make a right angle. A linear pair means they add up to 180 degrees or make a straight line. Vertical are the angles that are across from each other, never next to each other. And adjacent means next to each other. They share a common ray. So we're looking here at the difference what's going on between A and B. These are vertical angles. They're across from each other, between these lines intersecting. The line going more up and down is sort of not needed for the diagram, just confuses us a bit. They're vertical. Vertical angles are never adjacent. We don't know what they add up to. We're not told anything about their measurements, so all we can say is that they are vertical. What we do know about vertical angles, though, is that the measurement of A would equal the measurement of B. Okay. On our next one here, we have two angles that are next to each other. A and B are right next to each other, and they are on a line. So we know that they are a linear pair because they add up to a line. So we're going to call them a linear pair. We also know that they are adjacent because they share this common ray there. So when you're deciding what categories apply to angles, you need to do, first off, complementary, linear, or vertical. It's going to be one of those, and then ask yourself if it's adjacent. Sometimes all it is adjacent if it doesn't have any other relationship.